What are the Four Noble Truths? There is samsara, from which one seeks liberation, and there is nirvana, which one aspires to attain. One wishes to be free from samsara, whose nature is suffering. So, the first truth, the truth of suffering, is the aspiration for liberation from the suffering of samsara. One wishes to attain nirvana, which is the truth of cessation. However, liberation cannot be achieved merely by wishing for it, because all phenomena arise from causes. Samsara and nirvana also arise from causes. The cause of samsara is the second truth, the truth of origination, karma and afflictions. Therefore, one needs to eliminate the cause of samsara, karma and the mind poisons. When these are eliminated, one attains freedom from suffering and from samsara. To attain freedom from suffering and samsara, one must eliminate the origin of suffering. However, one cannot remove karma and afflictions directly, as their root is ego clinging. The way to eliminate ego clinging is the fourth truth, the truth of the path. It involves meditating on selflessness by examining the five aggregates and the deluded association of I and mine with the five aggregates. Through realizing selflessness, one can eradicate clinging to the self, and the mind poisons naturally subside. When these subside, one can practice the path, the fourth truth, and finally attain the truth of cessation. We study this every day at noon because it is extremely important. It is an essential condition for attaining Buddhahood, a necessary path that no one can skip. Some say there is no need to study this, we can directly follow the Bodhisattva path. Such a claim is not true. It is the shared path. It doesn't mean that those who follow the Mahayana don't need to study the Hinayana, just as one must complete elementary school before attending university. Can someone who hasn't attended primary school go to college? That would be absurd. Many followers of the Pureland school say, "We are Mahayana practitioners, so we don't need to study the Hinayana." Some even skip the Mahayana path and go straight to the doctorate level, merely reciting Amitabha. Only those who have graduated with a doctorate are eligible to say, "I just recite Amitabha." Otherwise, they are not qualified to do so. It is not easy to truly understand the meaning of Amitabha. Therefore, at the current stage, we still need to regularly reflect on selflessness in persons to eradicate self-grasping. In the Vipassana of non-Buddhist traditions, one eliminates part of the obvious mental negativities, but not completely. In the Vipassana of the Sravakas, the cause of afflictions is identified as self-grasping, the clinging to the notions of I and mine. Belief in the self is a delusion because, in reality, there is no self or anything that truly belongs to a self. Since even the I does not exist, what can be called mine? In truth, nothing. There is no I or mine. All things regarded as mine have no actual owner. When one realizes the absence of self in Vipassana meditation, clinging to self naturally vanishes. So, the main practice of the Sravakas is meditation on non-self. An example of this ego clinging happened to me the other day when I noticed that one of the links in the metal strap of my watch was broken. When I saw that, I thought, oh no, the strap might break and I will lose my watch. Even though only a tiny piece of metal was missing, I felt worried. When we examine the watch, we cannot find anything that is truly mine. It was made in a factory. It is merely a piece of metal that didn't originate from I in any way. If I did not have the delusion of mine associated with the watch, I would not have felt the discomfort or anxiety upon seeing the broken link. You bought the watch and wear it. The longer you possess it, the more likely you are to arouse afflictions, especially with things you are attached to. If you lose them, you might not even be able to sleep at night, or might even skip the evening class to search for them. Many people think Buddhism is an unpleasant experience that makes us unhappy. It teaches the nature of suffering, the absence of self, and impermanence. We may think that meditating on these subjects could make us uncomfortable, lose confidence, and so on. Buddhism does teach these truths, but it is because we need this information to attain liberation from suffering. Once we understand the nature of suffering, we can be freed from it, and our wisdom will grow. Ordinary beings have an innate clinging to the self. This self-clinging is present in children without being taught. Animals also have it, but what is this clinging? There is no stable object for this clinging. It is a delusion. Sometimes one thinks the self is the mind, but upon closer examination one sees that the self is not in the hair, bones, eyes, nose, brain, or any other part. These are merely parts of the body without a self. The body is just a physical aggregate of form, a composite of multiple parts. The self is nowhere to be found. Recognizing that the body is not the self, one may think that the mind is the self. But the mind is just a continuum of moments, like a river flow. Each moment is a new instant of the mind. We had thoughts yesterday, we have thoughts now, and we will have thoughts in the future. One may wonder whether a past thought will ever come back. It never returns. When one was a child, one had a child's mind. As one grows and ages, the mind changes. The mind has different characteristics, thoughts, ways of thinking, and levels of understanding. Even the mind of yesterday is different from the mind of today. There is a continuous succession of changing thoughts and states of mind. So one asks, is the self of today the mind of yesterday? No, the mind of yesterday is gone. Then, is the self of today the mind of now? No, the mind of now is going to disappear, so it cannot be the self either. Upon further analysis, there is visual consciousness, auditory consciousness, mental consciousness, and so on. Even mental consciousness is a mixture of different things, grasping at something red, conceiving something as white, and so forth. Thus, mental consciousness is an accumulation of different parts, not a single entity that could be called the self. It is composite. Consciousness is a continuity of various conscious moments. Having understood the absence of a self, one meditates on non-self and comprehends the Four Noble Truths. Through this process, one attains the Vipassana of the Shravakas or Pratyeka Buddhas. It is wonderful to know the truth of non-self. Previously, we were attached to the notion of a self. Now, understanding selflessness brings a feeling far surpassing any worldly sensory pleasure. The Vipassana of Mahayana Bodhisattvas is the meditation on the selflessness of phenomena. Today, we are learning about the Vipassana practiced in non-Buddhist traditions. In fact, this is not real Vipassana practice, but reflection guided by the principle of karma. For example, understanding that anger causes discomfort and suffering, one strives to restrain it. This uses the principle of cause and effect to guide one's contemplation. Although the non-Buddhist view of cause and effect is not ultimate, some of them also believe in causality and rebirth. They, including Christians, know that committing unwholesome deeds leads to falling into hell after death, so they refrain from such actions. They also practice this kind of meditation. Therefore, this type of Vipassana is shared with non-Buddhist traditions. A further level is the Sravaka's meditation for eradicating self-grasping, using the wisdom of selflessness to counteract afflictions. The insight of non-self is more advanced than the view of karma. As I mentioned earlier, right view is crucial. The first is the view of cause and effect, and the second is the view of selflessness in persons. Both aspects of meditation are important and foundational. No matter which path you follow, including the Pureland school, you need to learn these. Without studying them, you cannot reach the Western Pureland of ultimate bliss. While you may not realize non-self, you should understand it to some extent, develop conviction, and then generate bodhicitta. Strictly speaking, without any understanding of selflessness in persons, it is impossible to generate bodhicitta. Those with firm self-grasping and no wisdom in emptiness cannot even generate conventional bodhicitta. Without the Hinayana wisdom of emptiness, one cannot generate Mahayana bodhicitta. This is also true in terms of the stages of practice. Given the current level of spiritual faculty, most people need to meditate on selflessness in persons and then generate bodhicitta. Therefore, we should devote great effort to this aspect. For those new to Buddhism, it is sometimes necessary to share karma stories to frighten them. Committing evil leads to hell after death. This is necessary because, without some fear, they may engage in unwholesome actions. Another approach is to let them learn through suffering. Once they have suffered enough, they will become afraid. Without suffering, they will not practice the dharma or seek liberation. Beings have different spiritual faculties. Among those present, some may have greater capacities, understanding the emptiness of phenomena and having aroused bodhicitta. After cultivating bodhicitta to a certain foundation, if one doesn't wish to practice advanced teachings, one can recite Amitabha's name to be reborn in the Western Pure Land. At this stage, one can practice the Pure Land path to aspire for rebirth there. While reciting the Buddha's name, those with greater capacity can also cultivate higher levels of wisdom, such as combining Chan and Pure Land practices. Some have become enlightened while reciting the Buddha's name. Nevertheless, it is essential first to follow the stages and genuinely generate bodhicitta. To generate bodhicitta, one must have not only renunciation, but also some degree of the wisdom of emptiness. Without any wisdom of non-self, how can one generate bodhicitta? Self-grasping is deeply ingrained, especially for beings in this degenerate age. When the mind is preoccupied with I, how can it consider others? Even if you wish to go to the Pure Land, your motivation may be selfish, without any thought of liberating sentient beings. All you think about is enjoying life there. As a result, reaching the Pure Land becomes difficult. Those with no wisdom of emptiness cannot arouse bodhicitta. This requirement may seem high, but it is essential. When one has genuinely aroused bodhicitta, even if it is conventional, practice is on the right path, and one can attain rebirth in the Western Pure Land through reciting the Buddha's name. Since the Pure Land school belongs to Mahayana, generating bodhicitta is essential. In Mahayana Buddhism, cultivating bodhicitta is the first step.